bad guy number one has my son with a pistol to his head, and he's got his left arm around his neck, his right hand pistol to his forehead or the side of his head here. Another guy, short, squat guy, comes out with my daughter, and he's got both arms wrapped around her.
Listen, gang, Lucky Gunner has both fantastic content and great prices on ammo. Enjoy the convenience of online purchase and crazy fast shipping. Experience why Lucky Gunner is one of our favorite spots on the Gunternet. Go to get-ass.com/Lucky Gunner. And while you're there, check out MagTech Ammunition. MagTech is the exclusive range ammo for the Active Self-Protection team, and we are grateful for their commitment to quality and support. You can buy MagTech ammo at the Lucky Gunner link. Remember to tell them both that the ASP Podcast sent you. All right, gang, welcome back to the Active Self-Protection Podcast. I am your host, Mike Williver, your favorite former Fed. With us today, a gentleman by the name of Charles Shirley. He is married, he has 3 kids, and he is currently living in the Midwest, and he's a retired military police officer from the U.S. Army. Charles, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Mike. Great show. Thank you.
So there's a lot we do on this show to talk about the before and the after, but your incident is particularly harrowing. I use that word a lot, but it really applies here. And I've just gotten the basics from you and done some verification that it's a real thing that really happened. And so I'd like to, as I say, I like to learn about the incident at the same time that my audience is learning about it. So I don't know much more than the basics. But we're going to start with where you are from originally. Where are you from, Charles?
I grew up in Georgia, in Augusta, Georgia. I went to high school there and some college, joined the military in 1979, and then stayed stateside. I was at Fort Dix, New Jersey, stayed stateside for 3 years. Came back to Fort Gordon for a year. Went through SRT training. Was a team member of Special Reaction Team. A breacher, we called SRT then. I went to Germany, did 3 years in Germany, and came back to Fort Gordon, back on the team again. And got orders for Panama in 1989. And at that time, it was under Noriega's rule, dictator, and it was getting pretty rough. They had, from our side, they had their people boarding school buses and intimidations and so on. And that's how I got to Panama.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine that I trained with years ago, and he was in Panama as well. I believe Army as well, if I'm not mistaken. And the comment he made to me that stuck with me is, everything in Panama is trying to kill you. Not just the people, but the animals, the trees, yes, the bushes, the insects. Everything wants to kill you in Panama. Is that accurate?
That's a funny thing, but yeah, there's 11 type of coral snake in Panama. So you think 1 or 2 in Georgia, at least, and where I'm at now. They've got bush eyelash vipers. They got bushes that look nice. You lift the leaf up, they got spikes underneath there. So yeah, they got what they call black palm. There's your spiked palm trees. And if you're at nighttime, you do night missions, you're wearing gloves. You don't just rip through there. You learn to hold on and kind of okay, we're good. So it will go through your glove and go through your hand.
Lovely.
And body, your boots, it's a good assumption.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. I've had a bunch of people, I think for every branch at this point, maybe not Air Force. I'll have to go back and look, but why the Army? What drew you to the Army versus another branch of the military?
Oh, well, my dad was military. My granddad, his dad. I've researched back to 1829. I have a family member in 6 different battles in the Civil War from 1829. I was born in 1829. And I hurt my arm, couldn't play baseball, had to wear glasses, couldn't be a pilot. So I wanted to be a cop, and I thought I would only do it for 3 years. And jobs weren't easy to find. And I got fired from 84 Lumber. Said, I don't like this feeling, unemployed, and I had a young child, my oldest son at the time. And I said, no, this isn't cool. So I joined, and nothing to it, really. It was issues, and, it's military, and if you got rules and regulations, but if you do what you're supposed to do and show up on time, be in the right uniform, you can go a long way. And I stuck to it for 21 years.
Very good. So talk to us about the training the Army provided you. I assume you had, obviously you had small arms training. I assume probably with an M16, and I'm assuming probably with a 1911 style pistol. Is that accurate? Or
Oh yeah, I love my 1911. Well, I came in with the M16 triangular hand grip, plastic. All my instructors were Vietnam veterans. My first permanent party were Vietnam veterans. My platoon sergeant, squad leaders, all Vietnam vets, and we trained at their level. I did 1911, my 45. I loved it. Um, and from there, you go to depending on your qualifications, what you want to do. You go to different training. I wasn't airborne. I wasn't air assault. Uh, and MPs are limited to, unless you're assigned to a specific unit for airborne. You're not allowed to go airborne. Same with air assault. MPs aren't air assault per se, but you can get those schools when you transfer. Um, my my first school outside of MP training, where you learn to be a cop, basics, out of Fort McClellan, Alabama, was a special reaction team in Fort Gordon in 82, 83. And I'd already had experience with two Cuban camps, riots, riot control. I thought I became a riot control expert in my sleep. Baton use, where to hit, where to strike, where not to strike, so on like that. Yeah.
So you said most of your instructors and squad mates were Vietnam vets. A lot of people don't know that the M16, its first major combat was seen in Vietnam, and when it first deployed, it was not received well. They called it a poodle shooter because of the size of the round, and did not immediately take kindly to Mr. Stoner's engineering. Had that perception of the M16 gone away by the time you joined? Had they embraced it? Had they fixed all the problems with it?
My level, yeah. Keep it clean and keep it oiled in the right parts, right places. We used an M14 more for decorative and burial, funerals, things like that, and ceremonial. But the M16 was the weapon that we used. We had the full automatic semi, and burst came out later, the A2. We did not like the 3-round burst mode, and that was the newer version with a round grip. And I think it was pre 62 grain bullet, and then they came out with the 62 grain green tips later on, and that was a big step up.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you this: the story that you're going to tell us about happened in Panama. Were you still active duty in station in Panama when this happened, or were you retired and living there as an expat?
I'd been retired 9 years.
Okay.
And I'd lived there since 94. I moved back the final time in 1994.
So why Panama?
My wife, well, first time I went in 1989. I was married to my first wife, and she didn't come down there. And I went by myself. And there's a vibe or a feeling down there that I can't explain. It's I don't know. It's activity. People are outside. They're doing something. They're not locked up in their house, or no internet at that time. None of that stuff. But it's just a feel to the country. And the first thing I come out of the plane, we get on a military green bus, no air conditioning, windows down, and we're driving by one of your niggas' barracks. Guys are standing out front of AKs and pointing them at us. Yeah, just great. And we're unarmed. Yeah, we're in Class A. We're a dress uniform at that time. Everybody travels different now, but the AK's playing with us. And I said, "Great, this is going to be fun." Sarcasm there.
Mm-hmm.
But the people, they're good people, pro-American, except for there's a small amount, a vocal amount that are anti-American. But I love the people. They're, for the most part, very friendly. It's a great little country, really.
You know, the government sent me to Nicaragua once for work, and I know what you mean when you say there's a different vibe down there. Nicaragua, not far from Panama, as you know, And
Yeah.
not the same thing. Obviously, there's a lot more. United States has a lot more influence in Panama, having built the canal and having a presence there for such a long time. But when I got off the plane in Nicaragua, I could sense immediately I was not in Kansas anymore.
You were right.
And
Yeah.
taking the ride uh, from the airport to where I was going and seeing military checkpoints. It's like driving through Tijuana, for example, where there's a military checkpoint and there's like 3 or 4 kids who look like they're 17 and they're carrying these rifles that are ridiculously large, and you're like, holy crap! I'm definitely
conscripts. Yeah.
I'm not home anymore. So let's talk about the incident itself. When did this happen, and just walk us through what happened?
Okay. Well, it was February 12th into 13th, right before Valentine's Day. Normal day. It's beautiful. It's my favorite time of the year down what they call dry season. All our windows are open, no air conditioning, no ceiling fans, and we do our normal routine. We eat and sit down, watch TV.
And when you
And
say
we normally go to bed.
it's you and how many kids at this point, and how old are they?
Well, we're there. My son, oldest, 15, 16 at that time. And John was 13 and Sam was 9. And they're all at the house at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're doing their thing. They're playing Sega or Sega, whatever the video games.
Sega, yeah. Sega.
Again, internet down there was on my BlackBerry, 128 dial-up. I had a BlackBerry at that time. And, so we do that. It's nighttime, quiet, a cup of coffee, some cake. And we normally go to bed about 1 or 2. Kids get up for school at 4:30. I joke, we go to bed normally to sleep naked. That's what we did. But for this particular reason, this night I slept with the shorts and a t-shirt, and Susie with a nightgown, and normal. We went to bed like 12:30. Again, a little earlier than we normally do. So I'm happy. I go to sleep as much as I can. I have post-traumatic stress, so I'm known to swing and fight and kick. But for whatever reason, I didn't have time to get into deep sleep. I'm laying there and sleeping, and Susie, I could feel her sit up real hard. And she's shaking me, Papi. There's somebody, she didn't say, Papi, alguien está la casa, in la casa. There's somebody in the house. I said, oh, come on. And I'm trying to wake up, And so I turn around, look up, and sure enough, there's a light on. It shouldn't be on. And it's in John's room. She's sitting up. I'm reaching for my 9mm. I just brand new bought Smith & Wesson 9mm, cheapest one I could get. And I snake rounded the first in the chamber. So I have to drop my magazine, slide it back quiet to take that snake round out, birdshot, and then chamber the 9mm round. So I do that, and we're moving up. She'll get out of bed, and I'm putting my finger up to her, and my lips going quiet. Sneak up to the door. We have 2 doors before we do the hallway. I think I sent a picture. 2 doors before the hallway, and I'm peeking through. Our door is normally closed, so they must have opened it a foot or so. I'm looking through. Susie's on my right rear, and I see this is I do it slow. Bad guy number 1 has my John, my son, my second son, with a pistol to his head, and he's got his arm around his neck, his left arm around his neck, his right hand pistol to his forehead or the side of his head here, and he's doing like talking in his ear, like a maleante, a bad guy would talk. Mm-hmm. That's how I perceive it. And then at this time, I see that another guy, short, squat guy, comes out with my daughter, and he's got both arms wrapped around her. And then at this time, there's a tall guy comes walking out of my oldest son's room by himself. So it's like 1, 2, 3, just like I got it ready. I got low ready. I'm saying John, Sam, tall guy like that, and all I had was, "Oh, Susie, this again." Shh, and moved up to the second door and went through the door, pushed it out, and yelled in English, "Get down, John! Get down, Sam!" And fired in the air, high, high. The hallways, maybe uh, two people could pass shoulder to shoulder without turning. So they collapsed. So I came through yelling, "John, Sam, get down!" And I hit two shots. They collapsed and took off. I came down and I hit and shot again. Hit the tall guy in the upper right chest, and then came around, slid to the left, and hit the guy with the pistol. Had been blocking from my angle. Slid to the left and shot him in the thigh and in the butt, in the right cheek, right thigh, right cheek. He continued on. My wife, I love her to death. She came around and threw to my left side. She came around and threw her cell phone, threw her cell phone at the guy, and I see this thing whizzing by. But they're collapsing, and I hit. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I shot two more times down the hallway, missed. And my son said he could feel the bullets go by.
So just to be clear, so you come out and you're presented with your son being held by a gunman with a gun to his head, and your daughter as well, and then the third individual comes out of your other kid's room. Do they, when that's happening, do they see you yet or not yet?
No, almost at the same time, you could hear that there were people outside. We think there's anywhere from 7 to 10 people involved. I know 5 were in the house, but there were other people outside the house in the street. And then we could hear, "The gringo's awake, the gringo's awake." And I was like, I have to do this now. Knowing how what it's going to happen to my kids, all this went like snap, snap, snap. Said, if I don't do this now, I'll never see him again.
So is this a common occurrence where you were in Panama? Is this something that happened to Americans? They think you have money. Were they planning? Do you think they were planning on holding them for ransom? What did you think was happening?
Well, it staying up to the news, you watch the local news and read the newspaper. People still read the newspaper down there, and then watch the local news. There are what they call secuestros, where they kidnap, sequestration, secuestros, and it happens, but not a lot. But you see more in Colombia and more in other countries around the area there. That'll be a newsworthy event.
Mm-hmm.
They're taken hostage, then they're ransomed, and then they're sometimes released, sometimes not. So I don't know. I like the reason that if I didn't do this now, I would not see him again. That's what comes to mind when I came out the hallway. They're not killing him now, but they're gonna hold him for ransom and then probably kill him anyway.
Yeah, you don't want to wait around and find out. I mean, what the bad guys are going to do. So, as you come out, you tell the boys to drop. Is this something you guys had practiced or talked about ahead of time, or did they just listen to their dad?
I was hoping they would listen to me. No, we never practiced it.
Have you discussed it?
I can't recall discussing with him. Susie, I was in Colombia, and she had an attempted home invasion. Somebody climbing on the roof, and police arrived. She had a small 380 pistol. I leave for her, and the police said keep it if they didn't shoot. But that was an attempt, probably in 2001. No, I don't recall ever saying this is what we do.
Right.
I didn't. It just. I knew the area, knew the people around there. Everybody knew me. I was really the only American in the area, and knew everybody, and we got along. What I thought we got along fine. But there's a little backstory there. So
okay. So just going back a moment to your initial contact with these three. So you come out, you tell the boys to drop. the boys do, or excuse me, the two your son and daughter, I guess it was,
Mhm.
to drop, and they do, and you're able to get rounds on all three of these guys. Was there any return fire at all? Did they try to shoot back?
No, I hit two of the three. Um, but the guy with the 38, he was loaded, but I think it was a flee or fight. His mindset was probably not to shoot, but to take.
Hmm.
And that's what I'm going with. That he wasn't in a I'm going to defend mode. So, but he ran.
Probably not planning on this level of resistance either.
Yeah, yeah, and he ran, and they went there's two steps to go up, and then they turn right, and my son John turned around, actually knocked the guy down that had the pistol, and he's my hero, because he was, he said he was pistol whipped and beat up on for 10 to 15 minutes in his room prior to coming out the door. They beat him up. They were looking for something in the house, and they were speaking Spanish, and we knew they're Colombian by their accent.
Mm-hmm.
There was Colombian gang members, and my daughter thought it was me that grabbed her. She was out of it. So
do we? Not that we're done with the story, but do we know what we think they were looking for? What do they think was in there? Do they think there was money
sure.
or dope or something?
The first time we ever heard this term was tumba. A tumba, and you translate it's like a tomb, but that's a gang slang down there for somebody who is a drug dealer, somebody who has drugs. I didn't know that. So, but the police later on said, you're selling drugs, or you're a big time drug dealer. I drove a nice car and things like that. No, I was a tour guide, a retiree. But that's what they told us. So you're here checking us out because of bad guys saying
right.
that we are, said, no.
All right, so let's go back to a little bit earlier. So
sure.
These, you got rounds on two of the three. All three of them fled, and what happened at that point?
Okay, so John knocks him down. I'm still holding. John runs back, and then Sam runs back. I clear the hallway. I'm sliding backwards. My wife takes them two in the room. I come down the stairs, close and lock the door. We still didn't know if our other son was dead or alive. We don't know at that time. We didn't know what they did to him, tied him up or anything. So I go to the bathroom, and I'm starting to reload. Right, I'm not in a good mood. I got so much rage, and I'm so mad that I was going to commit murder. I was going to go back out and hunt these guys down, and that was my mindset. And my wife stopped me, probably for the best. But the guys went through the window that they came in. There's 1/4-inch rebar in the window, and it's traditional, typical down there. These bolt cutters, the biggest bolt cutters they could find, brand new, cut this 1/4-inch rebar enough, remove the glass inserts. They're like Florida windows. There's slotted glass.
Mm-hmm.
You slide it out, and they did that. And some broke. And they crawled through there. And I've got pictures of that where the blood is on the curtains and on the floor and so on.
So do we think they came early and scoped this out and did this work maybe while you weren't home? Because it seems like that would make a lot of noise at 1 a.m. or whatever time it was.
1:32. They'd had a map. So there was, again, that's another backstory to that. They had a map of the house. And they left a backpack, a telephone. That was pretty funny at the time. It started ringing, and the police are there, and we handed them the phone. Hey, they're calling. Somebody's calling his phone. Never heard back from that at all. So they get out the window. The guy shot in the thigh and butt. He makes it maybe 50 feet, collapses. And the guy shot in the upper chest. He runs all the way down the street where they had a car stashed that was stolen earlier. And he gets in the car with the 3 other guys. And he doesn't make it. Police says he died sitting up in the back seat of the car. They're trying to get him to a hospital in Cologne, the city of Cologne. The other guy, he's laid out. He's got his 38 in him, and he comes up. He's ready to come up shooting, but the group gets there. There's another backstory to why their group, but they hear the shots, and that's Chuck's house. But they say it's Choi. They can't say Chuck. Choi's house. So that's coming. Shots are coming from Chuck's house. So they all leave with they're playing video games, and this guy's laid out, and he's getting ready to come up, and he's got the gun, and they just wail on him. I mean, can't, and we still don't know who got the gun.
So these are neighbors.
But, yeah, neighbors or friends of ours. Yeah.
I feel obligated. I know an audience member is screaming into their cell phone or other device right now, asking about the mode of entry. So I can't get past how they got all that work done without waking someone up. So do you think they came and did that maybe in advance when you weren't home in anticipation of this, or do you think they did it that night and no one heard it?
No. What happened prior? They poisoned it. We used to have a dog we keep in the house. We think they poisoned the dog. That was a modus operandi for a lot of the down the countries. They poisoned. Yeah, they'll poison the animal, and they'll wait for that to work. They'll throw chicken. I got pictures of our cat that died that night. They throw poison chicken at this and killed the cat. I'm very mad about that. But prior to that, our dog used to stay on the side, Lacey. She was a good guard dog. But we think she didn't eat enough of the poison, but she died real slow and eventually died a couple of weeks prior. Another thing, I had a motion detector that covered the hallway, the front of the hallway, the front door, the main window, and the area where they came in. Batteries are dead. Note to self, get batteries for the, and I didn't, whatever happened, I didn't get them in time. It would have got advance notice. And it wasn't working.
What kind of motion detector? Was it turning on a light? Was it an alarm, or was it triggering a video camera?
Very, very loud alarm. Okay. Yeah, and portable one. You could plug it in and just use batteries, and it worked. Too good sometimes.
Right.
Cat, curtain,
fly,
but fly. Yeah, but in this case, it was not functioning. And batteries.
That's a shame. So back to the incident at hand. So there's one person expires on the lawn after being beaten by your neighbors and friends, appropriately, in my opinion. Another guy expires, I assume, on the way to either their hideout or the hospital.
Yeah, that's what we're told.
So after all this dust settles, I assume the police arrive. Before I get into that and their response to this, what are the gun laws like in Panama? Is there a gun culture like they have here in the States? Can you get a permit? Do you need a permit as a foreigner? Were you allowed to have a gun in your house? Talk to us about that real quick.
Yes, it's a different process. There you can have a concealed carry. You go to the gun store, which are maybe 3 or 4 that you can look in a little glass, and there are very small select amount of weapons you can decide on: pistols, semi-automatics, and they're very expensive compared to my $300 gun here is $900 there at that time. Wow. It's 2008-9 when I bought the basic Smith & Wesson SW9V or something like that. Mm-hmm. But you buy it, and then you don't see it for 3 months. Then they give you paperwork that you have to go to for a psych evaluation and a blood test. The blood test is for a DNA. The pistol they take, the police take the weapon and shoot 3 shots and keep 3 rounds on record. And then once you clear all that, then you can come back to the dealer and pick up the gun.
So the DNA test to perhaps link you to something later, and also the ballistics to link your gun to a crime should a crime happen in the future.
Correct. And again, as all legal people do, you're not thinking criminal. Now, down there, gun laws are very strict. You can't have semi-automatic rifles. You can have single shot. You can have weapons, but it's very strict. Now, the bad guys, their MO again is to rob the guards. You see that a lot on active self-protection. They attack guards, and they ambush them and kill them for their weapon and vest. And this guy had a .38 revolver, which is a traditional weapon of security guards. And it happens constantly down there. you're a security guard, you're a target.
The police arrive. I assume their response is what you would expect. Code 3 lights and sirens, everybody running around, wonder what's going on. Talk to us about when they arrived, who called them, and what happened.
Even this is another, I mean, a story within the story. There's no 911 down. No, you don't call up. You call the cops, and they might show up and whenever. They do have patrols, and there's a lot of cops are very good, and a lot are very corrupt. My son, finally, my oldest son, I'm reloading, door's locked. I hear knock on the door. I said, who is it? Dad, what happened? He slept through all that. A nuclear bomb would have went. He slept through all that. So I'm ready to open the door, make sure they're not bum rushing us. He gets in, what's going on? We explain. Well, let me call 911. I said, 911, yeah, they're testing it out. Okay, call it. So he called 911 and they actually answered. And within 20 minutes, we had cops there. And they did come, lights and sirens. They picked the guy up off the ground, put him in the back, and back of their truck, their covered truck. There's no medical help. If you get shot there, they're going to throw you in a vehicle, horseback, whatever, wherever you are, and going to carry you bleeding, and so on. So, but he called on when they answered, and well, the patrol cops arrived, but not the investigative crew. And so this is where I had a Sony camera. I took still pictures of where the bullet casings were, initial shot where we came out of the bedroom, and then just a rundown of shots as I would do as an investigator from here, where the casings were in their positions within the house, blood spots, entryway, exit way, and then external view. And then I did a video, and it looks like your favorite expression you guys do, shot through a potato. Because it's an old Sony, one of the basic Sonys from like 2005.
It makes 480p look like 8K.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did a video saying these guys would come in here and screw it up, right? Because I'm an old investigator, and I know about, these guys came in Intruder form. They came in, and I walked them through it, and they were searching the house. So, what are you guys doing? So, we're looking for drugs. Said, what? We're not drug. I showed them certificates on the wall where I worked with you guys. I trained your bosses. That's what I did. I trained your bosses. And this is these certificates given. Oh, and then they stopped. But the one of the investigators was pulled a drawer out, and I had my shotgun rounds in there. And he looked at me, and I looked at him, and I said in Spanish, "Do what you got to do." And he closed the drawer. Professional courtesy. I had a shotgun. It wasn't registered. It was brought in when I was active duty, and I never got to register it, but it was there. And they said they already took my pistol. I'm defenseless, basically. And well, I had the shotgun and a black powder rifle, which with no black powder.
Right.
Yeah. So we stayed 7 days at the house. Another story. We were coming back one day. We stayed out of the house for the most part. Coming back to the house. And
this is
one way
post-shooting.
in.
We're talking about. This is after the shooting.
After the shooting, yeah.
Okay.
So we're coming back. There's only one way in, and the key point for any terrorist or any activity, you have that one way in, one way out. So they know you've got to come back this way. You have no alternate way. This road here, it comes into our front entrance. So I call my mother-in-law, open the gate, so we don't have to wait outside. And we come in, and then I have my son jump out to close the gate immediately. And you see that all the time from South Africa, all your videos, wonderful training tool. Those are focal points, danger zones, very critical that you need to be aware of. They know where you're coming and go. They don't have to do anything but wait. They don't have to follow you. They just wait. So we're coming up. A little nervous on this one. We're coming up, and I see two guys sitting on the side of the road, about 50 feet off the road. And I said, I want to talk to him. He was there that night. He was supposedly our friend to come over to eat. A guy named Nene. And I go over there, park the car, and I give my son the shotgun, my oldest son the shotgun, give him instructions to keep an eye out. And so I'm walking over and I'm talking to him, and he keeps cutting his eyes to the street. And there's a Montero, another kind of older Mitsubishi Montero, with a door open and there's a foot down. And he's looking over, and I look over and I said, I'm talking to him in Spanish, man, why'd you do this? I know you're involved. You come to my house, you eat at my table, drink my beer, and you do this. And he's looking. And the guy, another guy behind him, is going, like, pointing with his eyes. And I look behind him, and the door's open. The guy's got his foot down. And as you can see, a barrel down below. God was with me. You know, if you're not God-fearing, I'm God-fearing. God was with me when I shot in that hallway that day. I didn't hit my kids, and I know I could have. And it's very, very important to understand somebody guided my hand. And then this case, my mom never calls. My wife's in the car. Two guys are diverting. They're talking to her. They come. She's got her head to the right. Doesn't see me. My mom calls out of nowhere. And she picks up the phone and looks to the left and sees the car in the barrel. And then I'm talking there. And she goes, Poppy, Poppy. For some reason, out of them, she sees that it could have been, we think maybe they were trying to get a hit on me. So I come back and I double time back to the car, and we take off. They didn't proceed with what they were going to do. Get in the house, and that's it. We have to leave. We can't stay. And we got out of there. We packed up, left to my secret location, I call it, my sister-in-law's apartment. And I got the shotgun, and I'm not going to be that guy in a movie where I'm going to get caught without, it's an underground parking, clear the parking lot. I've got my kids' eyes open now, making sure they're looking. So we go there, and it's 7 floors up. We're in an elevator, and I've got my shotgun with me. No joke, shotgun with me. And it's an Old Noble pump. It's not short. And I had to leave that there. I'd leave that behind also. But we're doing that, and we're doing that for a couple of days. We're trying to sleep, and I'm sleeping with a shotgun. And I said, going through my head, we can't stay here. I won't see my kids again. There's nowhere to hide in Panama. It's a very small country. So I thought about going here, going there. Can't do it. So I contacted the embassy and see if I could talk to a representative about leaving. And I showed up, and they sent this guy out. He never identified himself. I didn't know if he's DEA, FBI, CIA. A real nice guy. And he come out, and I told him my story, and he looked at me, and we agreed on a time. We had to go back. Agreed on a time to go back, and he brought. When I came there, he said, "No shotgun." Right? Oh, dang! I was naked. I feel naked now if I don't have a weapon. I grew up with weapons. I'm comfortable carrying them. Highly trained, and so here I am. We go there to meet him in the embassy at Fort Clayton, and I get in the back seat of the number 2 car and explain to them what's going on. And they were gunned up. I mean, they were in heavy armor, and their bulletproof vests, their MP4s and AR4s, excuse me. And I had seen these were new to me because I'd been retired and I haven't seen the new ones, short barrel, collapsible stock. And I'm going, this is great. And we're going there in a team. And I said, you got 2 hours. All right. So they set up outside to go in and tell my mother-in-law, this is the last time I see her, tell my mother-in-law, this is what's going on. I got to grab pictures, the documents, pack for my wife, pack all that.
So this team is posted up outside your house while you're packing, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that tells you how serious it was. To me, it was like, why would they give me, the time of day? Embassy's really not there to help you out, believe it or not. They're really not there to babysit Americans. They have
especially not if you're in Kabul. But that's a story for another time.
Yeah, they're not there to help you. But they did a great. Something happened. Somebody said something. I worked with a couple of guys there. I recognized these guys. I worked with them when I was active duty there. On Jimmy Carter came down during the canal closing, and we coordinated before. So that was a little comfort zone there. I knew they were capable. So I get there in the house, and it was actually 45 minutes. They gave me, we got to go now. I said, what the hell? I mean, okay, you give me two. I can't ask for, I got 45 minutes, and we were really literally refugees. We hand carried what we could carry for my wife and my kids. And my wife hasn't seen my mother-in-law since, and my grandmother, or kid's grandmother. But we literally we went through the embassy. U.S. Embassy was great. I got visa to go back, passport. I mean, just lightning fast. The Panamanians, the embassy, gave my wife a visa. She had her physical and shots. They were great, just amazing. I didn't think they could actually get it done like that. We were out, I think we were on the 24th. So the 24th of February, we were in America.
What was the conclusion, or as far as you know, of the police investigation, such as it was? Did they, was there any follow-up after the day of? Did they come back and talk to you, interview you, collect any evidence?
Okay, so that morning, they asked us to come down and make statements. So we come down, we get a couple of guys that wanted a statement that I think I could trust. They've known them for years. So we go down to the police station in Cologne, and it said, we got the guys. Oh, great. We have a lineup. And then they dropped it. All the kids were interviewed by the investigators and the district attorney there, female. And end of the day, we never had a lineup, and they were all released. They stole a car and entered the house, had a dead body in the car. They were all released. And the DA said, I don't think you should ever go home again, because you'll find your kids, if you stay there, your kids will be on your front door in bags. And that's coming from the DA. It's pretty serious. But that was a first day. Nerves are high, no sleep. People stopping by, people we don't know, people we do know. How's it going? Everybody's heard about it. Small community. And
so how long was it before they decided to post up an officer at your house?
Oh, that same day. Okay. It wasn't that morning, but we had a cop there that night, and until we left.
So the other incident where you saw the two guys sitting there and the Mitsubishi Montero, was there not an officer there?
No, not at that time. No, where we were at, you could see our house. There's a soccer field, and then where we were parked at, there was no way that we could wave down or nothing. It didn't cross my mind. I wanted to get out of the area, and that was the first thing I wanted to do: leave the area.
So you guys get out of the country. Where do you land next?
We come into Miami. My wife had a little bit of issue because it's, again, rare that they have people that get a passport and a visa that quick. And we maybe spent an hour at the customs or the U.S. and then we're cleared. And then we flew to Atlanta. My brother picked us up in Atlanta. And yeah, that was it.
You mentioned earlier you already had PTS before this incident happened, night terrors and all that sort of associated stuff. Was that exacerbated by this? Did it help it? I've heard stories where sometimes another event will alleviate some of the PTS, especially something as righteous as the shooting you were in. Talk to us about that.
I'd already been, I guess, trained. I'm hyper vigilant. That's one of my issues with PTSD. Is hypervigilance. Is sitting at the beach, and this is 2000. I just retired. I'm sitting at the beach and didn't know what the hell that term meant. I'm looking around. I'm looking for outs. I'm looking in windows. I'm having beer. The kids are having a blast. Sunny day. I'm not relaxing. I'm not having fun. I'm on duty. I'm just waiting for something to happen. And that's when I first realized this is not right. Something's not right with, my mindset. I should be zoned out and having a good time. And since pretty much then, I've never say I have a good time, but I'm on duty all the time, constantly on duty.
I get that.
Yeah.
Was there anything else, Charles, you wanted to touch on before we wrap it up?
Well, there were keys that we didn't connect with. People are watching the house. Susie had a friend that actually they offered him $100 to shoot me. And he refused to do that. He came by the house and talked to her, wouldn't let me listen in. And she was a little shaken by that. And I just couldn't understand. We didn't bother anybody. We're mushrooms. We got every now and then. You don't need to be out here. You don't need to live here. I go by the bike riding with my kids and, hey, gringo, and they would make noise and things like that.
Well, Charles, man, I want to thank you so much for coming on and telling this story. I know it can't be easy to relive some of this stuff, but I know that our audience will find this riveting, and hopefully something that you had to say today will help somebody in the future.
And they can second guess me. I expect it.
Oh, they will. Don't worry.
Yeah. Why didn't he do this? Why didn't he do that? I get that. And I second guess when I watch a show. I love it. I mean, man, oh man, it's just amazing how the people don't believe it. This truth is stranger than fiction.
Yeah, it's funny. Just to wrap this up, I was talking to John recently, and we can do a badge cam video, and on the video, an officer does something that's out of policy and or illegal or morally wrong, and we say 8 times, that was wrong. He shouldn't have done that. He should be fired. He should face charges. Mm-hmm. And in the comment section, half the comments will be, how come you guys always make excuses for the cops? And then vice versa. If we say the cop did something right, half of the comments just are the polar opposite of what we had to say, or didn't really understand, or didn't watch the whole video. And, I think people have a binary worldview a lot of times, and they just see things one way or another. And if you say anything that doesn't align with some part of their worldview or some part of their outlook on life, they don't hear anything else you got to say. You could make 10 points. If one of them is slightly off from what they believe to be true, they'll discount everything else that you said. And it's a strange phenomenon, and it's sad, but I think that's where we're at, unfortunately.
Perception is reality.
Yeah, absolutely. And you say a thing, you say words, and you put them out into the universe, and everyone who receives those words, who hears those words, will filter them through all their life experiences and all the things that ever happened to them when it comes to law enforcement stuff. Every jerk cop who pulled them over and wasn't polite, wasn't professional, or was whatever. So you just do what you can. You say the things you got to say, and say them as professionally and honestly as you can. And after that, nothing you can do about it. Charles, man, thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike, and love the show. Thank you. Keep up the good work. Get it out there. It's good training for a lot of people. Believe it or not,
yes, sir.
They don't realize it. Knowledge is power for them to see stuff that happens like this.
Thanks, Charles. Alrighty, gang. It is time once again for the Gutowski Files, featuring our good friend Stephen Gutowski. He is the founder of TheReload.com, and he is the host of the weekly Reload podcast, which is available in all your finer podcast outlets. Stephen, sir, how are you?
And the less fine ones too.
All of them?
We don't discriminate.
The low rent podcast outlets also, you can be found there as well.
The worst ones, you can find it on there.
Well, folks, this is exciting because Stephen is the inaugural guest at the new Active Self-Protection Podcast World Domination headquarters, located in my walk-in closet, by the way. We have 2 now. One for me, one for her. So it's just me, the microphone, the MacBook, and some, a fine array of dad shirts, which I think everyone would find very, very exciting. But he is our first guest, even though you're hearing him after the episode. That episode was recorded at the old studio. We're at the new one now, and it's all very exciting. So, Stephen.
I'm very honored.
Well, I mean, no one else I'd rather have than you. This week we are talking about a bid by some current and former NRA board members to draft Colonel Representative Alan West to become the new CEO. And I think it's an interesting idea. I think change is really needed at the top of the NRA. I'm not sure what the process is. I'm sure you can fill us in on that as well. I feel like Colonel West has name recognition. He's very popular in the Second Amendment community. He has leadership experience. I'm not sure what his downsides would be or what the process is. So why don't you talk to us about that, Stephen?
Yeah, well, so first off, the process is that the members don't vote for the CO or executive vice president. Those are positions that are chosen by the board members. So there's 76 board members at the NRA, and really Wayne LaPierre has had he's enjoyed quite a lot of support from the board, even during these last 3 years when there's been a lot of dissension and uproar about the corruption allegations surrounding Wayne LaPierre and other members of leadership. But so Wayne has maintained that level of support with the board by and large. Actually, somebody who'd run against him, Rocky Marshall, is a former board member who's part of this campaign to get Alan West to run against Wayne LaPierre. But he actually was nominated against Wayne last year and only got 2 votes out of that 76. Now, to be fair, Wayne only got 44 votes because, I mean, a lot of board members just don't show up to these board meetings, even on consequential issues like picking the next executive vice president or even whether or not to approve the bankruptcy that they tried and failed to go through last year as well. So, there's some potential, I suppose, that a person like Alan West coming in to run against Wayne could cause more board members to peel away, especially given the performance of the NRA over the last couple of years. We talked about a while back the internal financial document that the Reload published, which showed their finances had been cut in half since 2018. And they're spending 20% of their budget on administrative legal fees going towards this defending this New York case where the Attorney General wants to try and initially she wanted to try and shut them down, but that got the judge denied that. But now she's hoping to have court appointed overseers take the place of LaPierre. So this is sort of an effort by dissidents at the NRA to replace leadership before it gets replaced by a court.
You'd like to think at some point that the membership, the general membership, the public that whose dues pay a lot of the bills at the NRA would be paying enough attention to what's going on. What is your sense of how much the average NRA member is aware of this stuff? Because I'm not sure they are. Despite our award-winning podcast going out and talking about this stuff. No, we haven't won any awards. I'm kidding. Despite our coverage here and your coverage at the Reload, I'm afraid that the average NRA member doesn't realize all these things are happening, doesn't realize that his or her dues might be going to pay for a really inept leadership and defending them in court and legal bills and everything else, when it should be going to help educate and preserve the Second Amendment, which is the whole point of the NRA.
It's hard to say exactly, how many NRA members understand what's happening there. Certainly a lot of NRA members, like Wayne LaPierre, he's been the face of the organization for decades. So there's probably a lot of loyalty still built up inside the membership to him, in the way that it's built up on the board. Although the board, with the way the elections work, it's easier to manipulate. It's easier to sort of control who gets on the board. And LaPierre's even been accused of doing underhanded things in that regard, using NRA money to pay for campaigns for certain people to get on the board over others. Of course, the board we've talked about some of this stuff in previous episodes, but the board effectively gets to choose who gets nominated to run for the board. There's what's called a nominating committee that's made up of board members. And so if you want to be on the board, you have to go and get the board's approval to be on the board. So you can kind of see how that might hinder any reform efforts. And then, of course, to vote for the board, the election of Wayne LaPierre as the leader of the NRA is like 2 steps removed. It's the board picks him, and then the people who get on the board are in large part decided by the board itself, the people already on the board. And then, of course, when you the board members are the people who get nominated are put on a ballot, which goes out to NRA members, but not all NRA members. You have to be either a life member or have had a membership for 5 years straight in order to be able to vote, which is, millions of people in the NRA rolls don't fit that bill. Mm-hmm. So, you can see sort of why it's difficult to change things internally. But, obviously this group of dissidents that wants to put Alan West up to run against Wayne LaPierre have been trying to oust him for a while now. There's a current board member, Philip Journeys, is one of the other people involved with this. There's also, I think it's John Daly was a former board member who's also on board with this sort of draft effort. And now Alan West has said he's considering it. He's praying about it, is what he told us over at the Reload. And West himself is actually a former board member too. He was very vocal and critical of Wayne LaPierre back in 2019 when the corruption allegations first came out, and even called for him to resign. So that, you could certainly see him wanting to take up this mantle and run against Wayne. He obviously wasn't successful in getting Wayne to resign back then. So you still would question how much sway he has over the rest of the board, given that they didn't, heed his call back a couple of years ago. And then he resigned last year when he ran in the primary or just recently when he ran the primary against Greg Abbott in Texas for governor. So it'll be interesting to see what he does now and how far he can get inside of that board.
Yeah, it sounds like the board and Mr. LaPierre are pretty well insulated, just judging from the way you describe it. It's kind of like, I've been screaming for years that the representatives and senators federally need term limits. The problem is only they can vote to enact term limits, so that's never, ever going to happen. So that's how you have politicians on both sides of the aisles just are become DC swamp creatures and live there for 50, 60 years and kind of, are inside that bubble, inside the Beltway.
There's some similarities with that. Certainly. I mean, Wayne's been executive vice president for over 30 years. Yeah. So, and a lot of people on the board have been there for decades as well. So, this is similar complaints you could certainly make there if you have that view of Congress, right?
Which I certainly do. Listen, folks, you need to be sharing this podcast, especially this end part, which I'm getting a lot of comments in the on the Apple reviews and comments that they love this part with Stephen Gutowski.
We read those too. We love them.
I do. Yeah, I read them. I send them to Stephen, and it's really motivating. We really appreciate the reviews. If you have a moment to go, if you're on, I'm not sure Spotify lets you do a review, just a rating, but give us a 5-star rating and give us a review, because we read that stuff and your feedback means a lot to us. If you want, throw in the word Gutowski, and we'll know you made it this far in the podcast. If you're sharing this stuff, if you're encouraging people to go over to the Reload and get a membership, that helps us to get these stories to you. And the problem is, I think part of the problem with this NRA debacle of late is that a lot of average, everyday folks, hardworking folks, have too much in their lives going on, and they just don't know this stuff's happening. And until we get enough pressure from enough members to make some change to the top, I'm afraid it's going to remain status quo, and that's not okay. As we said in this space before, the NRA is the most important Second Amendment advocate we have, and there's no one that's going to replace them if they end up running it into the ground. So we really need to get that pressure on the board and on Mr. LaPierre. Folks, you know what I'm about to say. Go over to reload.com and carefully consider getting a membership. Stephen relies on his members, and only his members, to fund his important work. The Second Amendment is worth preserving, and Stephen is doing his level best to bring sane, sober reporting on the Second Amendment, on gun issues to you, the American people, and the people abroad listening, by the way. Thank you, Czechoslovakia. I see you. Stephen, thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you. Hey, we've grown. We've more than doubled the last year over Reload, so things are going well. We really appreciate all the support you guys have given us.
Yeah, outstanding.